This is the easiest way to retouch your image using the Retouching Academy. The truth is, retouching your image with the Beauty Retouch can be challenging, especially if you don't know what tools to use. In this video, I'll show you how to retouch your image in just few steps using the Retouching Academy. Let's get started. So the first thing I'll do if I come to Photoshop, I'm going to duplicate my layer by pressing Command J. After duplicating my layer, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to clean up this image by removing the blemishes, the obvious blemishes. And to do that, I'm going to add a new empty layer. So I'm going to rename this layer Heal. After renaming the layer, I'll pick my spot healing brush tool. Once I select my spot healing brush tool, I'll point my brush settings, make sure my hardness is set to 0, and my type is content aware, my mode is on normal, and sample layer is selected, since we are working on an empty layer. So I'm not going to zoom in and just paint on the obvious parts to remove my blemishes. So I'm not going to paint on any blemishes I want to remove like this, and it's just going to remove the blemishes for us. So just make sure you are increasing and decreasing your brush size according to the blemishes you want to remove. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to remove the obvious blemishes with this layer right here, and just use close stamp tool to remove the ones that are not obvious later using frequency separation. So just take your time to remove the blemishes from the image. You don't need to rush the process. All right, so let's just start from here. I want to zoom in a little bit and just paint on any blemishes, any obvious blemishes I can see on my image, just to remove it. And don't forget to use the square bracket key to increase and decrease your brush size according to the blemishes you want to remove. So if you want to remove a big blemishes, use a big brush size. And if you want to remove a small blemishes, just reduce your brush size to fit that particular blemishes you want to remove, just like that. All right. Also, if you are doing this, make sure you take your time to remove blemishes from your image. It's very important. Make sure you take your time to remove blemishes. All right. So I'm going to continue removing blemishes for this image. You can zoom in and zoom out so you can see the blemishes on your image. So this part right here is the most important part when it comes to skill retouching. This is the cleanup. So how good you do your cleanup is going to determine how good your image is going to be. So don't rush this process. I know it can be hard. Just take your time, be patient, and just remove blemishes from your image. Not just the skin. I'm going to still remove those debts on the hair. All right. So I'm going to paint on those debts on the hair just to remove them like that. All right. So let's move to the before and after, and I'll do this for the whole of the image. See the before and the after. The before and the after. So I'm not going to do this for the whole of this image, just to remove the whole blemishes, and I'm just going to do that right now. All right, let's see our before and after. These are before and after. Like I see, most of the blemishes are gone, are before and after. Now the next thing I want to do, I'm going to do my frequency separation and just try to mix the color on the image and just make it look smooth and remove more of the blemishes using a close stamp tool. Let me show you how to do that with the Retouching Academy. So open up your Retouching Academy, and under frequency separation, you're going to see Gaussian blur and media blur. You can use anyone that works for you. They both work the same way, but I prefer to use the Gaussian blur. So what I'll be using, so I'm going to click on Gaussian blur. And it's going to ask you to put a blur radius. Now for the blur radius, it's very important. If you want your image to be smooth, use a low blur radius. If you want to keep texture on your image, use a high blur radius. But for a beauty image like this, I use between 8 to 25. It depends on how much texture we have on our image. Now, as you already know, this image has a lot of textures. So let's start with 9. And if it's not smooth enough, I'm going to use 8. But let's start with 9. And I'm going to click OK. Now, there's no perfect blur radius. It's just trial and error. So we're going to use 9 for this image. And if it's too smooth, we're just going to delete it and use 10. And if it's not smooth enough, we're going to run another frequency separation on top of this one and use a low number. So let's try now and see what works. All right. So once that frequency separation opens, it's just going to open a group for us. Under the group, we have our low frequency, which contains our colors and tones. And also we have our corrective tones, where we're going to be using to mix the color. And we have our high frequency, which contains the texture, and our high frequency texture copy, which we are going to be using to remove more blemishes for our image. So if you still want to remove blemishes from your image using the close stamp tool, just select this high frequency texture copy and just zoom in on your image, pick your close stamp tool, and just sample from a good part by pressing Option if you're using a Mac and Alternate if you're using a window. Sample from a good part and just paint on any blemishes you are still seeing on your image to remove them if you want to do that. All right, so I'm just going to sample a little bit, reduce my brush size. Also, don't forget to increase and decrease your brush size. It's very important. So Option to sample and just paint on any blemishes you still want to remove from your image. So you can do this, but let's just mix it with our mixer brush tool first and see if there's any more blemishes, and we can remove it later. Now to do that, I'm going to pick my mixer brush tool right here. Now for my mixer brush settings, I'll make sure I'm using a soft round brush. It's very important. And also make sure this clean brush is selected so that this brush is going to be on transparent. And also check this clean brush after each stroke. So check it, make sure it's checked. For my wet, I'm using a wet of 30. My load is on 30, mix is on 0. It doesn't really matter. It can be 100 or 0. It doesn't really matter. My flow is on 20. This brush right here is on 10. And my sample all layer is selected because I'm going to be working on this corrective tone, which is an empty layer. But if I was working directly on this low frequency, I'm going to uncheck it and just work directly on the low frequency. But since I'm working on this corrective tone, I make sure sample all layer is selected. Also, just come to your windows and click on brush settings. For your brush settings, make sure smoothing is selected and protect texture is selected as well for your brush settings. Now, before you start brushing, make sure you hide your high frequency texture layer. So click on it to turn it off, and the image is going to be blurred. You can see we have only the colors on the image right now because that's what we are going to be mixing. But if your high frequency texture is on and you try to paint, you're just going to paint textures on the image. As you can see, it's not going to make the image look good. Let's make this mistake. Since we're working on an empty layer, what you can do, you can just pick your eraser tool. Once you pick your eraser tool, just erase it like that. So this is the non-destructive frequency portion. That's why I like working on this corrective tone right here, because if I make any mistake, I can actually erase it instead of starting all over from scratch. All right. Now to smooth this thing, I'm going to pick my mixer brush tool again. Once I get my settings right, I'm going to turn off this high texture. Once I turn it off, I'm going to have only the colors on my image. Now if I'm brushing, I'm going to be brushing my highlight separately, my shadow separately, and just brush with a slightly bigger brush for the transition. If you don't know what I mean, let me explain that. So if I want to brush, I'm going to brush on this highlight you are seeing on the screen right now, this highlight right here, with a slight bigger brush, and just brush on the highlight like that. Also, if I want to work on the shadow, I'm going to brush on the shadows separately as well. Brush on the transition between the highlight and the shadow with a slight bigger brush separately. Now make sure you are increasing and decreasing your brush size according to the part of the image you want to work on. If you want to work on a bigger portion like this highlight, use a big brush. If you want to work on this small highlight on the nose, reduce your brush size to fix that highlight right there and just paint like that. All right. Also, brush according to the shape of the image. Now, what I mean by brush according to the shape of the image, if I want to brush on this image, I'm going to be brushing to this direction because that is the shape of the image. Also, if I want to work on the cheek, I'm going to be brushing according to the shape of the cheek like that. So that's how I'm going to be brushing. Let me just limit everything I've done so we can start brushing right now. All right. So I'm just going to pick my mixer brush tool again. Make sure my high frequency texture is turned off. Once my image is blurry like this and I have only the colors, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Please don't zoom all the way in like this. Zoom in to a point that you are still seeing the image, not just inside like this. All right. So about here works for me. Pick my mixer brush tool. You can see my brush size for this highlight. I'm just going to paint and circle like this on only the highlights. And I come to the shadow part and just brush the shadow like this to this direction. So you can see how I'm increasing and decreasing my brush size according to the part of the image I'm working on. So if you want to increase or decrease your brush size, make sure you're using the square bracket key on your keyboard to increase and decrease your brush size like that. So I'm going to paint on this highlight here separately, like so. Okay, come to this part and just mix the colors right there. So as I'm mixing the color, I'm just making the image look smooth. That is what I'm doing right now. All right, so if you are doing this, just make sure you take your time to do it. And if you don't get it right the first time, don't beat yourself up. It just takes practice. And like I said earlier, if you make any mistake, just pick your eraser tool and erase it from where you make the mistake. So let me just show you the before and after of what I've done so far and see if there's any error. All right, so look at our image. See the before and the after. The before and the after. You can see we've mixed the color on the forehead right there. The before and the after. So this is what I'm going to be doing for the whole of this image. So I'm going to turn on my high texture layer again, turn it off, and just brush according to the shape of the image just to smoothen it out like so. I'll come to the cheek, paint on this part. All right, paint on this part like this. So let me just paint on the cheek again so I can show you the before and the after before we continue. All right, so I'll come to this other cheek, paint on this highlight right here separately. like so. Paint on this part separately like so. This part right here. You can see how I'm increasing and decreasing my brush size, and I'm brushing according to the shape of the face, because I don't want the image to be flat and I don't want to change the shape of the face. That's why I'm brushing according to the shape of the image. All right. So I'm not going to do this for the whole of this image. I'll continue painting. Now, let's see the before and after before I continue, so you can have an idea or see what I've done so far. Rather, okay. Now, put my high frequency texture layer on again. Now, let's see before and after. Take a look at the face. The before and the after. The before and the after. So I want to be doing this for the whole of this image right now. So just take your time and be patient when doing this. Okay. Okay. So let's see the before and after. Our before and after. Our before and after. You can see this image is looking a lot better right now. If I zoom in, maybe there are still other blemishes I need to remove. I'm just going to cut my high frequency texture copy, which is this first one right here. Take my close stamp tool, sample from the close by area, and just paint on any blemishes I still want to remove from the image. So sample and paint like so. Now looking at this image, I feel the texture is still too much. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run another frequency separation on top of this one and use a blur radius of 8. Let's see what we are going to get. Okay. So I'm going to come to my Retouching Academy again. Click on frequency separation via gradient blur. On top of the first one, I'm going to use a radius of 8. Remember, we used 9 before. This time, I used a low blur radius of 8, and I'm going to click OK. Now, this part is optional. If you like the texture on the image like this, which I really do, you can leave it like that. But if you still want your image to be smooth even more, you can actually do this. Now, the same thing we did. Just turn off your high texture layer, pick your mixer brush tool, and just use a mixer brush tool to mix the colors. I'm going to be really fast about this, because it's just the same thing I did earlier. I'm not going to be skipping this one. Let me just do it together. So increase and decrease your brush size according to the part of the image you are working on. You can see how I'm increasing and decreasing my brush size. All right, so just paint on the image like that. I'm just going to paint on this part. Also, if you've learned it from this video so far, make sure to give this video a like, and also share this video to someone who you think might be interested in watching this video. Thank you so much. So I'm just going to be I think I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right, so paint on this highlight right here, paint on this shadow, so paint on this part right here. Just try to make the image look really smooth. But if you want to get the best results, please don't be fast like this. Just take your time to edit your image. You don't have to go fast the way I'm going fast. Now come to the body again and just paint on this part. Okay, so this is just to add extra smoothing to the skin. If you want to do that, this is actually optional. You don't have to do this if you don't want to do this. Okay, so I'm just going to paint on the highlights. You can see how I'm painting the highlights separately. All right, and also I come to the shadow. You can also see how I'm increasing and decreasing my brush size according to the parts of the image I'm working on, like so. All right, this highlight right here, I'm going to reduce my brush size to fit that particular place. So if you are working on your image, make sure you are increasing and decreasing your brush size according to the part of the image you are working on. It's very important. And also try as much as possible not to paint highlight into shadow and shadow into highlights, because when you start painting highlights into shadows and shadows into highlights, that's going to make your image look flat. It's not going to make the image look good. Also, it's going to change the shape of the image, and we don't want that. All right, so I'm just going to continue brushing on this image, brush on the highlight separately. This small highlight on the finger, you can see how I reduce my brush size to actually fit that particular place. So it doesn't really matter if the highlight is small or if the highlight is big. The only exemption is maybe you want to push shadows to highlights on purpose. If you want to do it on purpose, then you can actually shift colors by moving shadows into highlights or moving highlights into shadow if it's necessary, if it's needed. All right, so I'm just going to paint on this part and we are almost done. All right, so just watch this video to the end. You are really going to learn something from this video. So I'm going to paint on this part as well. You can see how I'm painting the highlights separately, brushing according to the shape of the image rather, not painting, brushing or painting, whichever. So I'm just going to paint or brush on this part like this. All right, so let's quickly see our before and after. We are done. Okay, let's see our before and after. Let me turn on my high texture layer. You can see it's looking a lot more better right now. So here's our before and after. Our before and after. Now for me, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to brighten those eyelids a little bit because I feel those parts are looking a little bit dark. So to do that, I'm just going to come to my Retouching Academy, click on Dodge and Burn Curves right here. Once I click on it, I'm just going to delete this visual aid. After deleting that visual aid, I'm just going to zoom in, open this group, pick my normal brush tool, make sure my flow is set to 3% or 5 if you want to use 5, but 3 works for me. Since I want to brighten this particular place, if you don't know what Dodge and Burn is, Dodge is to brighten, while Burn is to darken. Now, since we want to brighten this particular place, I'm going to come to my Dodge, make sure my foreground color is set to white, since our layer mask is set to black. Now for layer mask, if a layer mask is on white, you can paint black to hide. If it's on black, you can paint white to reveal. That's how layer mask work. Since our layer mask is on black, we are going to be painting white. So I'm going to paint white on this particular place just to dodge it, brighten it up rather, since we are dodging. Alright, so come to this other one, just dodge it a little bit like so, and brighten it up a tiny bit to make it look better. So still the before and the after. The before and the after. If you feel it's too much, you can just come to the opacity and reduce it a little bit like so. So I feel like this works for me. Now next time what to do, I'm just going to do my global Dodge and Burn. To do my global Dodge and Burn, I'm going to hide this Dodge and Burn group, come back to my Retouching Academy again, click on Dodge and Burn Curves again, and delete this visual aid like we did earlier. Click on Dodge and Burn. We're going to be burning the shadow and dodging the highlights just to add more dimension or depth to our image. Alright, so this is what I'm going to be doing. Let me just show you in a new empty layer. I'll pick my normal brush tool. This is just the description. This is not how I do it. So if I want to dodge, I'm going to dodge the highlights, these parts. Any part of the image that has highlights is where I'm going to be dodging. So this part right here, this parts, the lips, this parts. Also for the body, I'm going to be dodging these parts, these parts, these parts, this parts, this parts. So you get the point, this parts. Right for the burn, I'm going to be burning the shadow part of the image like this parts, side of the nose, this part of the eyes, this part right here, this part right here, the cheek or the blush rather. I'm going to be burning it. I'm going to burn this color bow, burning under the neck, burning this part, burning this part, burn this part a little bit. Also burn this part, burn this part, burn this part, burn this part. So you get the point. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to delete this description layer and open my Dodge and Burn group, click on my Dodge, take my flow to 30%. Because if my flow is on 100%, let me take it back to 100. If my flow is on 100% and I just try to dodge right now, it's just going to be too much. So what we want to do, we want to build it slowly, gradually. That's what to do. So I want to take the flow to 30%. Alright, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to group on my retouching layer and just turn it off so I can see our original image. So once I group my retouching layer, if you don't know how to group, let me show you how to group. So just select the first layer you want to start the group from and just press command until you select all of them, or with the first layer selected, hold shift, click on the last one and just press command G to group. So after you group, I'm just going to click on this eye icon to turn off the group so I can see where my original shadow is and where my original highlight is. Now I'll come to my Dodge, pick my normal brush tool, take my flow to 30%, make sure you're using a soft round brush, hardness is set to 0. Alright, and I'm just going to gradually dodge on the highlights. Also, don't forget, make sure your foreground color is set to white. It's very important. I want to gradually dodge the highlights until I feel it's okay. Like this, dodge this particular part, dodge this part, dodge this part, dodge this highlight on the lips, dodge the jaw, dodge this highlight right here, dodge this highlight right here, this highlight right here, just to bring back the original shine of our image, like so. Alright, dodge this part like this. Alright, so I think like this works for me for the dodge. Now for the burn, I'll come to the burn and just burn these parts. Alright, burn side of the nose, burn this part of the eyes. Alright, burn the cheek, burn this part of the cheek, burn this part of the lips. Those shadow part of the lips, I'm just going to burn it. Okay. Also burn this nose right here. Under the neck, I'm going to burn under the neck as well. And this shadow right here, I'm going to burn it. Also, I'm going to burn this part right here a little bit. Burn this part, burn this part, burn this part a little bit like I explained earlier, and just burn this part, burn this part. So I think I'm good. Now from here, I'm just going to turn on my retouch layer. So come to the group and just turn the layer on. Alright, so let's see our before and after of our dodge and burn, of our global dodge and burn. See our before and after. Our before and after. If you feel it's too much, you can just come to the dodge, reduce the opacity of the dodge, or come to your layer mask, come to Windows and click on properties to show the properties of the layer mask and just feather it a little bit. Also, come to the burn, come to properties and just feather it a little bit like this. Alright, so let's say before and after. These are before and after. I still feel it's looking too much, so I'm going to reduce the opacity a little bit like so. Alright, so see our before and after. And as a bonus, I'm not going to show you how to get that dark Milani color grading if you're interested in that. So to get that, just come to your adjustment layer, click on your black and white adjustment layer, come to your blend mode, change from normal to multiply. Once you change to multiply, just reduce the opacity a little bit. So let's use about 60. 60 works. So see the before and after, our before and after. But obviously it's looking too dark. So to brighten it up a little bit, come to your adjustment layer, click on levels adjustment layer, and just move these highlights up a little bit. Also, come to the midtones and push it up a little bit to open up the image just like that. Now let's say before and after of our levels. These are before and after. So what you can do from here, you can just group the black and white layer and the levels layer, alright, and just reduce the opacity if you feel it's too much like so. See our before and after, our before and after. Now from here, you can choose to add digital texture on the image, but this image has texture already, so I'm not going to be adding digital texture with the Retouching Academy. Also, if you want to sharpen your image, you can just click on this sharpen right here under the Retouching Academy, click on sharpen, and just going to sharpen the image for you if you want that. So these are before and after, are before and after. I feel it's looking too much, so you can just come to the opacity and take the opacity down a little bit like so. So let me just group everything we've done so you can see our before and after. See our before and after. And for me, you can choose to crop your image 4x5 for Instagram. Click on your crop tool, come to ratio, click on 4x5 and just crop it the way you want for Instagram. So let this work for me. I'm going to click on OK, our before and after. So that's how you can retouch your image or smooth your skin using the Retouching Academy with frequency separation. And if you don't have the Retouching Academy, I'll leave the link, you can get it in the description below of this video. And if you want to learn how to retouch your image from start to finish, even though you don't have the Retouching Academy, click on this video right here. I'll see you guys in my next one. Stay creative.